Good morning, good morning, good morning, my friends. Today we are doing a live full reaction video to Barry's economics. Um, one of the one of the few YouTube channels that I am a big fan of, um, and have been for a little while now, not too long, but a little while. And I figured, you know what? Let's just dive in. I haven't watched this video. Let's just do a live reactionary video to it. See what we got. Hopefully, now watch with my luck. Watch him drop some rubbish or say something I disagree with and whatnot, which might even make this better, if anything, actually, because I usually agree with most of what he says anyway. So
I'm here in Sandwich to talk to you about the history of the sandwich and how it shows our most powerful weapon in defeating inequality. So I don't know if you know who invented the sandwich. Oh, the Earl of Sandwich. Not Steve, the bricklayer of Sandwich. No, it's always an Earl, because history isn't about who actually did things. It's about who gets to put their name on them.
Okay, interesting. And I think what we might do, speed it up.
In 1762, John Montagu, the fourth Earl of Sandwich, yeah, the fourth. There had already been 3 Earls of Sandwiches before. Not one of them thought, bread. No, the fourth was a genius, right?
So I'm kind of I'm intrigued a bit, just because, when I think of this channel, I mean, one of the last videos they did with some zombies was pretty creative, actually. And maybe they have more like that, and I'm just not as engaged with this content as I should and could be, and will be, as I continue to watch them more and more. But Sandwich, and just thinking of everything that he speaks to when it comes to, like, inequalities around wealth, or just the system being rigged, so to speak. I think, I don't know, sandwich. I mean, a sandwich regarding all of this, the only thing I can think of, I mean, you got like bread on the outside, and you got all these like layers. The outside's the same, then layers, and then in the middle. I mean, maybe how they just feed us BS and we just eat it. I don't know. I'm curious. I'm intrigued. What do you guys think before I press play? Comment down below. Let me know what you think. The metaphor is, or what he's going to be comparing, that alignment between the rigged system. Again, maybe it's something to do with, food, and I don't know. Let's see.
1762, he was at the gambling table, right? And he didn't want to leave his cards because he loved the gambling. So he asked for meat between 2 slices of bread, and his friend said, "I'll have the same as sandwich."
Meat, 2 slices of bread.
Bang. History. But you know what's funny? People had been eating bread with stuff inside of it forever. Hillel the Elder, 1st century BC, lamb and herbs between matzah. Medieval peasants would eat meat on trenches, basically edible plates. Flatbreads with fillings all over the world. Shawarma, chapati, wraps, tacos. So the Earl didn't invent the sandwich, but what he did do is he branded it. He owned the story, and that's the point. The truth isn't what actually happened. The thing that really matters is the story. What people believe, and that's way more important.
This is okay. I think I know where he's going with this, because what people believe. This is literally the, debates that I have with my oldest and closest friend, who is on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to pretty much any of these economic issues and in politics and whatnot. And I can share, he used to, at one point, he was all about, give me the facts, the facts, the facts. Despite me always giving him the facts, he never wanted to truly acknowledge them and recognize them, because he would always come back with some sort of story that he believed. This is spot on. And yeah, I mean, it's literally why things are what they are right now today. And why people continue to vote for some of these same politicians that vote against their personal, their own interests. It's like, yeah, and I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. I've played rugby and football. I'm sure I got a few, loose screws too, but yeah, I can make sense of when someone, is poking me. Right. And yes, if you if you pull it out a little bit, um, but I'm still being poked or stabbed or whatever. I'm aware. I know I'm still being stabbed or poked. So even when there's some leeway and whatnot, and you're letting up and you see some progress, it's like progress doesn't mean things have been, solved. So yeah, I'm excited to see where he's going with the rest of this.
Important than the little old truth. The Earl had power, prestige, and profile. And once you have that, once you own the story, you can change behavior. You can change nations. Because names have power. You put an idea in people's minds. I mean, a sandwich library. Nobody's thinking that is a library in sandwich, are they? If you see the phrase sandwich library, your head goes, oh, we have to rent sandwiches? Like, I've got to take out a sandwich? Like, is there, how do we, I don't understand, like, what, I mean, you've got a card, a membership card. Yeah, I'm renting an egg cress sandwich this week. I'm just going to try that. What if you want a sandwich on a Wednesday? For example, it's closed on a Wednesday. How would you even get a sandwich on a Sunday or a Wednesday? Well, you can't have a sandwich on a Sunday, obviously, because the sandwich library isn't open, and I can't afford my own sandwich, so I have to rent. If you get to name what a sandwich is, you get to choose what people think when they hear that word. Everything in this town means something else other than its actual name. For example, I mean, what is a sandwich Magna Carta? So what they did, I guess, is they took a survey of all the sandwiches in the land at a certain time, and everybody had to say how many sandwiches there were. I don't know about you, I've had days where I'm like, how many sandwiches are in the house? Because I'm feeling there's too many sandwiches in this house, and I want to do something about it. St. Peter's Church sandwich. A church sandwich. And that is a big sandwich, you're right, because you can see how big it is, because it says the heritage organ stood in St. Peter's sandwich from 1996 to 2016. I don't even understand what. I mean, I've had some good sandwiches, but I've never wanted to kill a man over it. At that time, British cuisine was very poor, and I can only presume that the French and their buttery sandwiches were worth invading for. But look at that, look how seriously they took. There was a whole, they got the Navy involved. I mean, I'm not going to tell you who won in the Battle of the Sandwich, but one team cut the mustard. You've heard of passenger accessibility ramps. Well, this is a passenger accessibility sandwich. Yeah, peace monument for sandwich, because sandwiches are quite, they do lead to battles. We've established that already.
Yeah.
Mouldy. I can only think mouldy. And I'm not sure I need to know what that is. And this
Sandwich
is
slam.
the significance of a name. It matters. Naming the story is power. Take GDP. Take gross domestic product. Gross domestic
product.
It sounds scientific, right? A clean measure of progress. But it's been debunked for decades. Like, even Simon Kuznets, the guy who helped design GDP in the 1930s, warned against using it to measure welfare because it ignores inequality.
Doesn't account for everything.
Environmental destruction. It ignores unpaid work. A divorce is great for GDP. GDP counts a war as growth. Build a bomb, GDP goes up. Clean up the bomb, GDP goes up. It's literally the only measure of human progress that does not care
account for
at the end. But politicians and newspapers keep worshipping at the ultra GDP because it's the story that it's always been. GDP goes up, yay! GDP goes down, boom. And it's always been the measure of economic growth. It's the story, so people believe the story. Or take neoliberalism, the grand.
I mean, yeah, and this is where it's like, again, it goes back to some of these debates and arguments I'll have with my diehard Trumper friends who, oh, look at the stock market. Look at the economy's booming. And I'm like, my man, who owns majority of the stock market? Like, you can take out, you and I and a trillion, pretty much like all of us can take out like all our money, and it's not really gonna impact the market to the extent that the top 1% influence it. So like half of the things that are thrown out most of the time when it's used as something that's supposed to be, an argument or proof as to why things are good, it's exactly what he's saying in terms of, well, what does this item actually encompass? What's actually included? Does it exclude any factors or any data or anything? More often than not, they do, and hence what he just said. Even the founder, the creator, um, people calling out, like, and maybe at the time of something being created, they're not aware, and that later at a later time they come out, and or maybe they are aware and they're saying, hey, this is what it does, this is what it, I've created this framework and it works in this particular way, and it doesn't factor in X, Y, and Z. Well, if that works to fit someone's narrative who has the power and the control and the ability to help dictate what people believe and hear, and it favors their personal interests, well, unfortunately, some people, which we've seen and have experienced and are experiencing, have run with it to the extent where it's changed the world, it's changed countries. And yeah, so yeah, let's see what this other point is he's about to bring up.
Story. Or take neoliberalism, the grand story of the last 40 years. Free markets, deregulation, privatization.
Yes, neoliberalism is literally, the more I'm getting into trying to explain to, friends or just as strangers or anyone, like, hey, most of what we've been fed over the last 50 years, 30, 40 years, as he mentioned, is rubbish. And it's really just been to fit a narrative that aligns with, again, those at the top, those who are controlling everything. And unfortunately, they're able to use various factors and, stories, uh, narratives to help influence the masses, or at least those people who do have, or are yeah, we'll say those people. I mean, we all might have the power and whatnot, but we're not all exercising it. A certain group of Americans in particular are, and more often than not, they are voting a particular way, as we've seen. Hence, our current system being ran like a circus. If you go and see what the White House looks like right now, and today is what, June 14th, so you can look up the date of what the lawn looks like over there. Yeah, you know, things make sense as to why things are so kind of screwed up right now, right? It's those individuals at the top who are able to dictate and create the narrative and the story that the masses are just eating up, right? Like a sandwich.
Well, even the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the temple of economics, published papers showing that neoliberal policies have increased inequality and slowed growth around the Western world. And it's the same psychology with the same.
Again, we can, when we really look at the numbers and data and stuff, it's like, yes, you just, the biggest thing to me that aligns with that is just so weird to me that no one really wants to call out. And just, the past few days, Elon Musk has become a trillionaire. Well, it's that income gap that we're seeing between CEO pay versus employee pay. It's ridiculously high, and it's only going higher, unfortunately.
The Earl loved the story that made his laziness look like innovation. Our elites love the story that makes the status quo look like the only way and the right way. No, they're not the wealth hoarders that own all the factories and land and assets, so you have to work for them. No. They're the job creators. They create the jobs. So they're not people that own everything that you need to survive and then charge you access to that. No. They're the job creators. They didn't pull the ladder up so you couldn't climb. They created a ladder opportunity for you. You're welcome. Somebody came round and ate all the food in your fridge and left a Deliveroo referral code on the kitchen table. Went, lucky day, man, 20% off Deliveroo. And don't have to thank me, just eat whatever this is. I mean, the finest coffee and sandwich. Everyone loves a coffee sandwich, right? Well, it's a bit soggy, but yeah, whatever you got the idea for. So we all call it sandwich because an aristocrat got naming rights. Just like we call millionaires job creators just because they get to call it that themselves. Everything, though, can have a different name. We can name it differently. For example, I don't call a coffee table a coffee table. No. I call them shin destroyers because that's what they are. I don't call a fitted sheet a fitted sheet. I call it a weekend ruiner. And I don't call a smoke alarm a smoke alarm. No, I call them 3 a.m. heart attack machines because that's what they are. Now, the power of being able to name your own legacy is also so important because John Montagu, the fourth Earl of Sandwich, in his day was actually known for something else, right? What was he known for? Betraying close friends for his own political gain, right? So when his close friend, John Wilkes, became politically inconvenient for the Earl of Sandwich, he had Wilkes's private poem that he sent to him read aloud in the House of Lords, which led to Wilkes, his friend's expulsion from Parliament and conviction for obscenity and libel. So perhaps we should actually take the word sandwich back as well. Perhaps the real thing named after the fourth Earl of Sandwich should be pulling a sandwich, which is essentially stabbing a mate in the back for your own personal gain. Yeah, do you speak speak to Barry anymore? No, he absolutely pulled a sandwich on me. That twat can die in a ditch. In economic...
I mean, I'm not surprised about that story and just the alignment of it, of that, like that personal interest component there, because that's what you see with many of the individuals that are influencing the policies that impact, the way the economy runs and currently is today. And this goes back to, I don't know what else he's getting into in this video, but this goes back to me always screaming about Citizens United and how it just, that completely has destroyed our country. And we need to get corporate politics, influence out of politics, excuse me, similar to foreign interests. Those to me are the two biggest things that are destroying America in particular at this moment in time. And that coupled with the continued, again, interest of policies favoring those at the top and corporations. So there's an alignment there with that corporation influence. Obviously, the individuals who are dictating and influencing the the policies that are going to best benefit the corporations tend to obviously benefit those at the top of those corporations as well, the CEOs and top executives. Doesn't trickle down to the employees for the most part. This trickle down Reaganomics rubbish that we've been fed, which is what he's talking about, neoliberalism, going back 40, 50 years, 30 years, is not effective. And, we need to wake up to the reality of the situation, because so many Americans are just eating up the rubbish that they've been fed. It's time for change.
We need a new story, because unlike the 18th century, the 17th century, the modern world allows us to hear everyone's story, everyone's voice, not just the landed Earl's voice. And in this world, extreme wealth hoarding isn't clever or heroic, it's inefficient, destabilizing and immoral, because there are limited resources, but nobody needs to starve. There's enough food, there's enough shelter, there's enough energy to meet everybody's needs, without anybody having to work 2 jobs a week and scrimp and save. You can't have the money in a huge pile when it's needed somewhere else. And we don't need to struggle as much as we are. Billionaires shouldn't be seen as captains of industry or job creators. They should be seen for what they are. Wealth hoarders, human black holes, asset dragons, people who sit on piles of gold so big that they walk the economy around them while everyone else starves. And once you see them like that, the question isn't, how can we find another way of celebrating their contribution to the economy? No. Or, you know what, we should consult them on the effect of wealth taxes. No. It's how can we stop letting them write the story?
Right. Exactly.
Like
I said.
By not politely asking them to share, because they're not going to suddenly wake up and go, you know what, I could do with 2 rather than 4 billion. I've got enough stuff. I'm going to stop being an acid dragon. So how do we do it? Right.
I mean, I was saying it before he finished his statement, and it's spot on. It's completely, he's accurate. He's right. And it's time for change. Like I said, it's time for us to step in and intervene. And, if you have an elected official who's not, voting, passing policies that benefit you and I, normal working, hardworking Americans, the average American, then I assure you things are going to continue to go in the skewed direction that they're going. And clearly, you're seeing more poverty, you're seeing more people starving, you're seeing more people struggling than really there should be with the abundance of food and just technology and so forth. But again, because of the way the system is currently set up, we're seeing trillionaires today, which is crazy. A trillionaire. So many people don't truly understand how much money $1 trillion is. And, even $1 billion, people don't really understand that. And again, will be struggling themselves, mad about, the economy and this, that, and the other, and gas prices that are ridiculously high right now and all this other stuff. But then they'll still go and vote for these same politicians that are implementing the policies that impact and influence the way things are. It just doesn't make sense. And this is where education, this is where sharing is important. This is where communicating, this is why I haven't given up on my friends who are diehard, Trumpers or conservatives, but yet they're struggling. I mean, even if you're someone who isn't struggling and you're doing well, you should, as he's suggesting, you should be thinking about, those other people across town who are starving and struggling. If you are in a world of abundance where you don't need any more money, I get it. If you're okay, if you make $100,000 a year, you're yes, you're making a little money, but you're not in a place where it's like, okay, I'm fine, I can just give up my life. I'll give my life away, so to speak, whatever. Like, no one's saying that. But even then, like, you know, we should all be still mindful of the connectivity that we have with one another. And just, again, your neighbor, that person down the street across town who's struggling, who's just trying to, working two jobs just to keep the lights on and just food on the table, let alone, having any kind of luxurious extra, curricular activities thrown into the mix and other things to enjoy life and live life. And it's like, people can't even do that because of the way the policies are set up and the way the system's set up and the way those at the top have influenced things to benefit them over everyone else. Policies need to be working from a middle approach out, right? Start focusing on the middle class, the working, the average person, making, just life easier there. And we'll kind of see that growth happen, right? You'll see it happen and spread out instead of this trickle down economics, Reaganomics rubbish that we've been fed with neoliberalism over the past 30, 40 years, primarily from Republicans and conservatives. Remember, I'm an independent, so I ain't trying to come off like I believe Dems have been perfect as well, because they certainly haven't, and I call them out as well.
And we stop it by one, telling different stories. If newspapers say billionaire genius builds
like I
rocket
said,
to put William Shatner in space, we need to say, no, billionaire has massive midlife crisis and builds rocket in hope of regaining lost erections. Language is power. If we have and change the words, we change the way people see the world and see each other and see the actions of these absolute plonkers. 2, reclaim the metrics. Stop worshipping GDP growth like it's the only measure of success. Let's start talking about child poverty, life expectancy, well-being, those indexes, because those are the human indexes. Growth is not positive just in itself. 3, collective voice. The internet means that we're no longer stuck just with the Earl's versions of events. Thank God for that. Gong. Millions of people can chip in, fact check, meme, mock, share. We're in this together. It's about collective change. And 4, policy, not charity. We stop letting the rich, stop letting the millionaires and billionaires setting the terms. Taxing them properly, closing loopholes, regulating things properly, and refuse to let the philanthropy or the idea of philanthropy replace actual proper taxation. We tell the new story together. The old story says the Earl invented the sandwich. Billionaires, millionaires, the rich invent prosperity. The new story says people have always invented prosperity. Billionaires, millionaires, just slap their name on it. And that's why the fight isn't just about tax or wages. It's about who controls the narrative. The Earl didn't invent the sandwich, but he invented something much more powerful. The idea that he invented the sandwich. Because whoever names the sandwich owns the table. Now, I'm going to leave you as I munch into this delicious Havel the Elder.
What was that last part he just said right there? Whoever...
Delicious. I'm going to leave you the sandwich. Invented something much more powerful. The idea that the Earl didn't invent the sandwich, but he invented something much more powerful. The idea about tax or wages. It's about who controls the narrative. The Earl didn't invent the sandwich, but he invented something much more powerful. The idea that he invented the sandwich. Because whoever names the sandwich owns the table. Now,
whoever names the sandwich owns the table right now. And it's so interesting as this kind of, I think that final point there around the narrative, being controlled by them. we're literally right now witnessing here in the US, like media, like like a ton of media companies being basically bought out by like one or two families. Again, not families necessarily that care about or look for or have the middle class and the lower class and the regular average American's personal interest in mind. Um, Very concerning, very disturbing. And I think his point around us, um, being a collective and sharing and communicating, like I said, I haven't given up. I have some people who are like, oh, you still talk to those people? I'm like, yes, I do. That's my boy. I've known him since kindergarten. I get it. He's been conditioned to think a particular way his full life, right? His whole life. Similar to myself, similar to you and anyone else who's in this world, in any particular part of the world that you grew up. You've been conditioned to think and act a particular way. What happens from there in your life and the path that you're able to go, and what you're able to learn and see, and all of that, there's no set path. Everyone's on their own journey and whatnot. And when I think of some of my friends who again are fully just kind of delusional and can't understand some of this stuff, I'm not like I'm just going to give up on them and just walk away. No, I maybe I don't always do it in the best fashion, but I haven't given up on them, and I continue to try to let them see the truth, let them see at least my truth and things from my perspective, or Barry's perspective, other perspectives that they may not have been shown before, right? So I think his points are excellent, and it speaks again to like the importance of this. This is why I'm jumping into this. Exactly what he said, um, around the narrative being controlled by those kind of who have the power and whatnot. But again, we all kind of have the power in that sense, right? You have a voice, use it. I'm using it. I've been abusing it, so to speak, for a bit. I have multiple YouTube channels. I have channels that I just haven't, been making content on for a while, mainly because, there's always been an alignment, but they weren't truly focused on something that I care about and am passionate about, which is speaking to income inequality, wealth inequality, and kind of just the rigged system. If some of these things happened in an environment where the playing field was even and actually fair and not skewed, I think it'd be easier to accept. But knowing how rigged and knowing that people are cheating, so to speak, if we're saying this is a game, you're playing a game of basketball, and we're playing, but we're more like spectators, but we're playing. It's like pickup ball, but like you jump in, then you're on the bench next second, 2 seconds later, you're playing. It's like, so we can influence the game. We just have to understand that we can influence the game. You got to play, you got to hustle. You can't you're not going to score by just sitting there, in the corner. No, you gotta work. Maybe you got to play a little defense to get the ball back to have the opportunity to score. And maybe more often than not, we have the ball. It's like I was just watching the NBA, like 30 for 30 or something, Lakers and the Celtics. And there was a part where they were saying that, Magic Johnson, they were looking for him, like he needed to step it up. And he's always been like a passer first. And like he kind of immediately, when they like really said, we need you to be this scorer and to fill this void, he took the lead and stepped up and changed the game that he had been playing, his style, to deliver so that they could win. I'm a Celtics fan. All right. So, I just like, damn. But when I see something that's effective and it works and it's legit, I give, the respect where it's due, and I acknowledge what's going on. And I'm like, okay, how can I learn from that? How can I apply that? How can I, and I see it here in this same exact situation. And this is what we need more of: us to be more proactive, us to be on the charge, and what I mean by us is me and you, and anyone who's just, again, a hardworking, regular, regular people, normal people, right? So I'm going to wrap it up there, my friends. Let me know what you think. Comment down below, leave your thoughts. I'm excited to keep this ball rolling, share this video, because this is what it's all about: communicating, sharing with your friends, your family, your network, us all being in sync, being unified, and knowing that, hey, okay, we may have some differences, some perspectives on some policies, some things that we disagree with, but are those truly as important as they have been portrayed to be? Again, who has the control to dictate the narrative that we're being, fed, right? Who? So this is a thing, and some of my friends, they just live on X. Who owns X? Who owns uh, uh, Facebook? Who owns, so again, if and not to say the algorithms on those platforms don't work in a way that if you're on the other side of the aisle, you're going to be force fed the same, everything you want to see. Like that's how they work. But I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you? I mean, I think this whole sandwich, I think this was a good video. He took a nice turn with it that I wasn't really expecting, and I wasn't really sure exactly where he was going. I thought it was going to be like, which you're fed, but it kind of is, sandwich, and but the person who made it and like that story, and that even worked even better. So it's kind of, this was good. Well done, my friend. Well done, my friend. Smash that thumbs up, my friends, down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. But you already know what it is. I gotta keep it moving, but I'll see you in the next video. Peace.